The poster was beautiful. Ava Thompson had spent 3 whole weekends making it. She had used her best markers, the ones she kept in a special tin box under her bed. She had cut out real NASA photos that her dad brought home, photos with shiny silver edges and tiny official stamps in the corners. She had written the title in careful bubble letters, each one colored in deep blue and gold. My hero works in space. She was proud of it, more proud than she had ever been of anything she made at school. But the moment Ms. Jennifer Clark picked it up from the sharing table, something changed in the room. Ava felt it before she could explain it, like the air got thinner, like the lights got colder. Ms. Clark held the poster at arm's length, the way you hold something you don't want to touch. Her eyes moved across it slowly, too slowly. The class was quiet, watching. Ava, Ms. Clark said, her voice smooth as glass. Come up here, please. Ava walked to front. She was 9 years old, small for her age, with thick natural hair pulled into 2 puffs and her father's same serious brown eyes. She stood straight. Her mother always said, "Stand like you know something. Tell the class what this says." Ms. Clark said, holding the poster so everyone could see. "It says my dad worked for NASA." Ava said clearly, "He's an aerospace engineer. He works at Johnson Space Center in Houston." For 1 second, nobody moved. Then someone laughed. It started small, just a snicker from the back row. But Ms. Clark didn't stop it. She didn't even look up. She just tilted her head at the poster with a small, tight smile, the kind that wasn't really a smile at all. "Ava," she said, and her voice had changed now, gone softer, like she was explaining something to a very young child. "It's okay to be imaginative. Creativity is actually something we encourage here. But this is show and tell, not show and make-believe." The laughter got louder. Ava's face did not change, not one muscle. This surprised even her. She had practiced in the mirror at home, had practiced staying still when things felt unfair, because her dad told her that the people who change the world are the ones who don't flinch. "Don't flinch, baby girl. It's not make-believe," Ava said. "My father's name is Dr. Michael Thompson. He has 2 PhDs. He's been at NASA for 11 years. His current project is—" "Ava." Miss Clark's voice went sharp now, the softness gone. "That's enough." "His current project," Ava continued, as if the interruption hadn't happened, "is a life support systems demonstration for middle schools and elementary schools across the state. He's actually scheduled to visit our class today, at 2 o'clock. The room went completely silent. Ms. Clark stared at her. Behind those thin-framed glasses, her eyes had gone very still. "Is that so?" she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am." "And you expect us to believe," Ms. Clark said, turning slightly so she was speaking more to class than to Ava now, playing to the audience like Ava had seen adults do when they wanted to win something, that a NASA engineer, a real one, is going to walk into our classroom this afternoon. "Yes, ma'am," Ava said again. "At 2. More laughter, louder this time. A boy named Derek actually slapped his desk. A girl named Priya covered her mouth, not laughing exactly, but not defending her either. Only one person in the room wasn't laughing. Tyler. Tyler sat in the second row, a quiet boy with red sneakers and a habit of chewing his pencil when he was thinking. He wasn't laughing. He was looking at Ava the way you look at someone when you're trying to figure out if they're brave or just stubborn. He gave a small nod, barely anything, just a dip of his chin. But Ava saw it. She nodded back. Ms. Clark set the poster down on the sharing table, not carefully, but not exactly roughly either. She set it down the way you set down something you've already decided doesn't matter. "We'll move on," she said. "Tyler, would you like to share yours?" Ava walked back to her seat. She sat down, folded her hands on her desk, and breathed. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Her mother, Dr. Linda Thompson, who had her own PhD in molecular biology and who had never once raised her voice in an argument because she said volume is for people who don't have evidence. Her mother had taught her that breath was armor. Under the desk, Ava's phone buzzed. She wasn't supposed to have it out during class, but she had asked special permission this morning, and Ms. Clark had said yes. Not kindly, but yes. She looked at the screen under the edge of her desk. Mom, Everything okay? Dad just left JSC. He's got the full kit in the van. So excited for you, baby. You tell your class? Ava typed back with one thumb. Ava, I told them. 3 dots. Then, Mom, and Ava looked up at the front of the room. Ms. Clark was helping Tyler unfold his poster, a drawing of a soccer player, very good. Everyone was being kind about it. The laughter from before still hung in the air like smoke. Ava looked back at her phone. Ava! They didn't believe me. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, Mom, they will. Ava put the phone away. She looked at the clock on the wall. The red second hand moved in its slow, endless circle. It was 9:47 in the morning. 2 o'clock felt like a different lifetime. But Ava Thompson had learned something important growing up in a house with 2 scientists. Time is not your enemy when the truth is on your side. You just have to wait. You have to be still. You have to let the facts do what feelings never can. She straightened her back, looked at the board, and waited for hours and 13 minutes. Her dad was already on his way. The morning crawled like it had weights on its ankles. Every class felt longer than the last. Every hallway felt louder. By the time lunch arrived, the story had already spread the way stories do in elementary schools. Fast, messy, and wrong in all the important places. Ava heard it 3 different ways before she even reached the cafeteria. Version 1. Ava said her dad was an astronaut who lived on the moon. Version 2. Ava had brought a fake poster, and Ms. Clark had caught her cheating. Version 3. The worst one. Whispered by a girl named Cassidy near the milk station. She probably just made the whole thing up for attention. You know how some kids are. Ava heard that last one clearly. She picked up her tray. She found a seat at the end of a table near the window. She ate her sandwich in 12 bites, the same number every day, a habit she picked up from her father, who said that consistency in small things trains your mind for big ones. Tyler sat down across from her. He didn't say anything at first. He just opened his juice box, took a long sip, and looked out the window. That was one of the things Ava liked about Tyler. He didn't fill silence with noise just to make himself comfortable. You okay? He finally said. Yes, Ava said. The things they're saying. I know what they're saying. Tyler nodded slowly. Do you want me to tell them they're wrong? Ava thought about it. Really thought about it. The way her parents had taught her to think. Not from the feeling, but past it. No, she said. In about 4 hours, my dad is going to do that better than either of us ever could. Tyler looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, small, real, the kind you can't fake. Okay, he said. Then I'll just sit here. That works, Ava said. And he did. He just sat there with her, eating his sandwich, watching the window, saying nothing. It was, Ava thought, one of the kindest things anyone had done for her all day. At 12:45, Ava was called to principal's office. She wasn't in trouble. Mrs. Patterson had made that clear through class intercom, her voice warm and careful. Just a quick chat, nothing to worry about. But the whole class watched Ava stand up and gather her things, and she could feel their eyes on her back all the way to the door. Mrs. Patterson's office smelled like coffee and old books. There was a small plant on the windowsill that looked like it was trying very hard to survive. The principal herself was a tall woman with silver-streaked hair and reading glasses pushed up on her forehead. She had a way of looking at you that made you feel both seen and safe at the same time. Sit down, Ava, she said. Ava sat. Ms. Clark came to speak with me this morning, Mrs. Patterson said, folding her hands on her desk. She expressed some concerns about what was said during show and tell. Ava said nothing. She waited. She felt that the claim you made about your father visiting today may have been said in the heat of the moment. She was wondering if perhaps you'd like to walk it back. Quietly, before the end of the school day. Mrs. Patterson's voice was not unkind. She was not accusing. She was, Ava understood, giving her an exit, a soft way out. Ava took a breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Mrs. Patterson, she said, my father is Dr. Michael Thompson. He received his first Ph.D. in aerospace engineering from MIT when he was 27. His second Ph.D. is in materials science from Stanford. He has worked at NASA's Johnson Space Center for 11 years. He is currently leading a program called Science Comes Alive, where NASA engineers visit schools to do live demonstrations. She paused. He is scheduled to be here at 2 o'clock this afternoon. He has been planning this visit for 3 weeks. I didn't say it in the heat of the moment. I said it because it is true. The office was very quiet. Mrs. Patterson looked at her for a long moment. Not the way Miss Clark had looked at her, not with doubt or dismissal, but with something more careful, something that looked almost like reassessment. "You're very composed for a 9-year-old, she said finally. "My parents say that composure is a form of intelligence," Ava replied. Something moved behind Mrs. Patterson's eyes. Respect, maybe, or recognition. She uncapped her pen and pulled a notepad toward her. "What time did you say?" 2 o'clock. Mrs. Patterson wrote it down. "I'll make sure I'm available," she said. 312 miles away, or rather, 23 minutes across Houston traffic, Dr. Michael Thompson was loading the last of the equipment into the back of a white NASA-branded van. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered, with the same serious brown eyes he had passed his daughter, and the kind of calm that comes not from having an easy life, but from having thought very hard about a difficult one. He wore his NASA badge on a blue lanyard. His official mission jacket, dark navy with the Johnson Space Center patch on the left shoulder, was folded carefully on the passenger seat. In the back of the van, one full EVA suit partially assembled, 2 oxygen tanks safely sealed, 4 helmet visors, a sealed case of mission patches, real ones from real missions that he planned to hand out to each student personally, a portable screen for the presentation, and one small framed photo that his wife had slipped into his bag that morning without telling him, which he only found when he opened the bag to check the equipment. It was a photo of Ava, age 4, sitting in his lap at his desk at JSC, wearing his badge around her neck like a necklace, grinning so wide her eyes had almost disappeared. He stood there for a moment, holding it. Then he tucked it carefully back into the bag, closed the van doors, and got behind the wheel. He didn't know yet what his daughter had faced that morning. Linda had texted him. Ava had a rough start today. Class didn't believe her. She handled it beautifully. Just be there at 2. He had read it between equipment checks. He had felt something move through his chest. Not quite anger, not quite sadness, but something older than both of those things. Something that had been following him since he was a boy who people also didn't believe. He started the van. "I'll be there," he had texted back. "I'm always there." Back in Ms. Clark's classroom, the clock on the wall read 1:47. 13 minutes. Ava sat at her desk with her hands folded and her eyes forward. Around her, the class had begun to murmur. Someone had told someone else about the 2 o'clock claim, and now it had become something between a joke and a dare, a countdown. Derek had drawn a little clock on the corner of his notebook. Cassidy kept glancing at the classroom door, and then back at Ava with a look that said, "Nothing is coming." Ms. Clark stood at the board, teaching a math lesson that nobody was really listening to. 1:51, 1:55. Ava didn't look at the clock. She already knew what time it was. She could feel it the way you feel a storm coming. A pressure in the air, a stillness before something breaks open. 1:58. The classroom door had a small rectangular window in it. Just glass, wire mesh inside, the kind in every school in every city. Ava didn't look at it. She didn't need to, because at exactly 1 minute before 2 o'clock, she heard it. The sound of footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, steady, unhurried. The footsteps of someone who had nothing to prove but everything to show. The handle turned. The door opened, and the room stopped breathing. The man who walked through the door was not what anyone expected. He was enormous, not in a scary way, but in the way that certain people fill a room simply by existing in it. He wore a deep navy NASA flight jacket that caught the fluorescent light and held it. His Johnson Space Center badge swung gently on its lanyard. Behind him, a younger NASA colleague wheeled in a large cart covered with equipment, silver and white and official-looking in a way that made the air in the room feel suddenly different. Thicker, more serious, more real. Ms. Clark turned from the board. Her dry erase marker was still in her hand. She looked at the man in the doorway, then at the badge, then at the jacket, then at the cart behind him. The color in her face did something complicated. It didn't exactly drain away, but it rearranged itself somehow, the confidence reshuffling into something less certain. Dr. Michael Thompson stepped into the classroom and smiled. Not a sharp smile, not a triumphant one, just a warm, easy smile. The smile of the man who had rehearsed his presentation 20 times and genuinely loved every word of it. "Good afternoon," he said. His voice was deep and steady, the kind of voice that doesn't need to be loud to be heard. "My name is Dr. Michael Thompson. I'm an aerospace engineer with NASA's Johnson Space Center, and I'm here as part of our Science Comes Alive program." He paused, and his eyes moved across the classroom, taking in the students, the board, the math problem still half finished on the whiteboard, until they found Ava. He looked at her for exactly 1 second. She looked back. Something passed between them. Not words, not even an expression really. Just recognition. Just a quiet, unshakable language of father and daughter who trusted each other completely. Then he looked back at the class and said, "I understand my daughter told you I was coming." Nobody laughed this time. Derek's little notebook clock sat forgotten in the corner of his page. Cassidy's mouth was open slightly. Priya had straightened up so fast in her chair, she had knocked her pencil case off the desk and hadn't even bent down to pick it up. Miss Clark set her marker down on the tray beneath the board. It made a very small sound in the very large silence. "Dr. Thompson." Mrs. Patterson's voice came from the doorway. She had arrived without anyone noticing, standing just behind her with her hands folded and her reading glasses finally down from her forehead and on her face, as if she wanted to see everything very clearly. "We're so glad you're here." "Happy to be here," he said. What happened over the next 40 minutes was something that every single child in that room would describe differently for the rest of their lives, but always with the same feeling underneath the words, the feeling of a world getting bigger. Dr. Thompson's colleague, a young woman named Rosa who had her own NASA badge and a smile that made you feel like science was the best secret anyone had ever let you in on, began unpacking the cart while Dr. Thompson talked. First came the helmet. A real EVA helmet, white and curved and enormous, with a gold-tinted visor that reflected the classroom back at itself. He held it up, and the kids, even Derek, even Cassidy, leaned forward as one like flowers toward light. "This visor," Dr. Thompson said, tapping the gold surface gently, "isn't gold because it looks cool, although it does look cool." A ripple of genuine laughter. "It's gold because of a very thin layer of real gold coating on the surface. Gold reflects infrared radiation heat, which protects the astronaut's eyes from the sun in space, where there's no atmosphere to filter it." Hands went up, 3 at once. 4. He answered every one. Then came the oxygen tanks. 2 of them, smaller than most people imagined, matte white with pressure gauges and valves that Rosa demonstrated carefully. Dr. Thompson explained how astronauts breathe on a spacewalk, how the suit maintains pressure, how the oxygen is recycled through a system called the PLSS, the Primary Life Support System, which, he said, is basically a backpack that keeps you alive in one of the most hostile environments in the universe. "How cold is space?" Tyler asked. He hadn't raised his hand. The question had just come out of him, pulled forward by pure curiosity. "In the shade," Dr. Thompson said, "negative 270 degrees Celsius. In direct sunlight, positive 120. Sometimes both within minutes, depending on your orbit." Tyler stared at him. "How does the suit handle that?" "Great question. Layers. 21 layers of different materials, each one doing a specific job. Insulation, pressure containment, micrometeorite protection, thermal control." He looked at Tyler with the focused attention of someone who recognized a genuinely curious mind. "What's your name?" "Tyler." "Tyler, you just asked the same question that took a team of engineers 4 years to fully answer. You should feel good about that." Tyler sat back in his chair looking like someone had just handed him something valuable and told him it was his to keep. Then Dr. Thompson reached into his bag. He pulled out the mission patches. Real ones, circular, embroidered, vivid with color and symbol. Each one represented a real mission. He held them up one by one and told the story of each. The crew, the objectives, what they discovered, what it cost, what it gave back to humanity. His voice never got smaller. It got quieter in places, the way voices do when they're carrying something precious, but it never got small. He walked through the rows and gave one to each child personally, placing it in their palm, telling the name of the mission it came from, making it a handshake between them and the cosmos. When he reached Ava's desk, he stopped. She looked up at him. He looked down at her. He reached into his bag and pulled out a patch she hadn't seen before, different from the others, newer, the colors brighter. "This one," he said, loud enough for the class to hear, "is for my current mission project, the one that brought me here today." He placed it in her hand. "You earned this one, Ava. You told the truth when it would have been easier not to. That's what scientists do. That's what we're built on." The class was completely still. Then Priya started clapping. Just Priya at first, nervous, genuine, real. Then Tyler. Then the rest, spreading like a wave from the back of the room to the front, until the classroom was filled with the sound of children applauding not out of obligation, but out of something that felt, even to 9-year-olds, like justice. Ms. Clark did not clap. She stood at the side of the room with her hands at her sides and her eyes on the floor, and she looked, for the first time that day, like someone who understood exactly what she had done. Mrs. Patterson spoke with Ms. Clark privately that afternoon. The details of that conversation were never shared with the students, but its effects were felt over the weeks that followed, in the careful, formal language of a written apology delivered to Ava's parents, in the district level review that followed, in the quiet reassignment that came 2 months later. Ms. Clark was not a monster, but she had done a monstrous thing to a child, had used her authority not to lift a student up but to press her down, and had done it in front of an audience, which multiplied the damage in ways that take years to fully measure. These things have consequences. They should. 6 months later, the classroom had a new display on the back wall, a galaxy of student project about space, science, discovery, and possibility. At the center of it, framed in simple black, was Ava's original poster, the one with the bubble letters, the one with the shiny NASA photos. My hero works in space. Ava Thompson, age 9, was now the founder and president of her school's first ever astronomy club. 12 members, 2 telescopes donated by JSC, and a direct email line to Rosa, who had become something of a pen pal and a hero to all of them. Tyler was the club's vice president. He was already researching thermodynamics in his spare time. His mother had called Dr. Thompson to say thank you, and the 2 families had since had dinner together twice. The school had been recognized by the district as a model for inclusive education reform. Mrs. Patterson had been asked to speak at a state conference about how to build cultures of dignity and evidence inside classrooms. And Dr. Michael Thompson had returned. Twice more. For full school assemblies that left auditoriums of children sitting in stunned, hungry silence, reaching towards something larger than what they had been told was available to them. The stars don't move for doubt. They don't rearrange themselves for the comfort of people who would rather disbelieve than expand. They burn in their ancient, indifferent way. And they are available equally to every child who is willing to look up. Ava Thompson looked up. She had always looked up. And the universe, as it tends to do with those who study it honestly, looked back. Truth has gravitational pull. The harder you try to bury it, the stronger it rises. And for every child sitting in a classroom right now being told they are less than what they are, there is a 2 o'clock coming. There is always a 2 o'clock coming. Hold on. If this story moved you, if you saw yourself in Ava or in Tyler, or in any child who was ever told their truth wasn't good enough, please like this story, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you never miss another. These stories exist because you show up for them. And just like Ava, we're going to keep telling the truth every single time.